Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is a fun series I've been playing or been fun talking about with the viewers. We are, of course, playing Hearts of Iron 3's Black Ice 11.2 and playing as America. So we're going to try to get some clock on the time and get going. I know everyone wants to see the action starting in, 1942 probably. Okay, see, things are already popping up. Okay, destroyer escort advance, roll advance. So I think that would be under naval. Okay, 1939 is too far in advance, but we can do. I don't know what if the order of these really matters. So, yeah, mostly just do 37. An infantry firepower focus advance. I'm guessing that there's one over here because I'm not used to see. Yeah, 1942 much. Okay, we'll move this over to a nice cruiser one. And what are they? Okay, yes, you can have rare materials. Yes, you can have crude. We've got plenty of all of those. For now, at least. Great. Analysis, that is, let that continue. Single engine research. Yeah, closer support. Okay. First, who are we trading with? Colombia? No, thank you. Prolong the Neutrality Act. Yes, we're going to continue to do that to get more democratic support. Let's take a look at our current government. Okay, so Democratic Party is getting more support here. We are continuing to ruin our country. Yes, okay, cancel. It's Harold Ickes. Okay, oil, money, supplies, resources. We could go because Harold Ickes is, I think, he's a rather leftist kind of guy, you know. Don't know why he's a resource industrialist, but whatever. Laissez-faire capitalism. Let's see. Consumer goods during peacetime. Resources down 10%. Well, you know, I don't know Robert Wagner. Like I say, I've heard of Harold Ickes, but I don't have a good opinion of him. Not very familiar with all these guys, but they're both Democrats, so it's not like splitting up ruling party. And a laissez-faire capitalist, not just because I like capitalism, but money. I've been warned about money. We'll get a lot more money. Consumer goods, so we'll need less consumer goods, and ruling party support will be up. So yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't want to go this other than just playing purely historical. Hoover is running our crime fighting stuff, and that is probably best support for us. Okay, science minister, we looked before. I've never heard any around. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of any of these people. But okay, more research, that's what we want. We're increasing our money more. We've got plenty of resources. So that is good. Hoover again running intelligence. Right. That is probably for the best. I don't know why. Whatever. Okay. Chief of Staff. Well, by this time, by 37, I believe MacArthur is out in Hawaii. Not sure exactly when he gets out there, but early 30s, he's back in Washington, sort of being the chief of staff. Okay, Mullen Craig, haven't heard of it. Leahy, I have heard of. Obviously, Navy. See, I don't know. God, I mean, not going to do it. This so wants. Why is Leahy a naval officer? School of Maneuver for Combat Speed Organization. Wanting to make a uh, I don't know, other than because part of why I'm trying to keep the Democratic Party unity up here, so that we have the more unified your government is, the more that party will do well, and we get benefits by having more Democrats here, and these really don't matter at the moment. Yeah, they really don't matter, but now, decisive naval battle doctrine. Okay, again, I've heard of Leahy. I've read a biography of Nimitz, Admiral Nimitz, and stuff. So, I know some of this, but I'm not a big naval expert for the U.S. at all. So I don't know, base doctrine. I don't know which would have appropriate, but yeah, but okay, and we only have one option here right now for the Chief of Air Forces. Why it's gray. It's not that they won't allow us to change it, but no other option. Okay, yes, so we'll do that. Have you ever got a game ending up playing as... No. I know... I don't know if you are, but the only reason you keep resources guy would be for building the buildings you spawn. That's true, and I wasn't even thinking of that, the building they spawned. I don't know. We'll see what when buildings with the other guy. I don't remember what Naval gives us, but we're now at medium popularity, which would have happened either way. The change didn't matter for that. Let's come over here for naval stuff, and we're gonna see about. Well, let's do some cruiser crew training. That sounds fun. And we got a little bit more. So, yeah, fire control systems training. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so we don't need any consumer goods. I think we can lower this just a bit. Okay, we're starting to get into ships again, and then 37, I definitely want more stuff. Have you ever ended playing? Oh, Silver Legion is America. Okay, well, I know some of the viewers are big fans of Hoi 4, and in my opinion, unrealistic unrealistic possibilities that can be done there. I am not a fan of that. Baltimore already has. I'm just trying to sort of stick them in either useful or historical locations. Yeah, Trenton, New Jersey. We'll give them a couple of industry points. Well, so far we've gotten that up. Let's increase Aries State. He wanted me to increase it. Yeah, down here by the rivers. We'll put another industry there. I like historically plausible what ifs. Historically unplausible what ifs are not my thing. I mean, I like the Kaiserreich mod for Hearts of Iron 4. But it's a whole weird and wacky world that is set up. And within its sort of wackiness, it all sort of matches. So unless you're going to go big what ifs, I do not so much like doing that stuff. So I don't try to play, and I know, I guess in theory we could try to somehow get the Silver Legion here. It's a minor faction here to come up, but it's not plausible. Send help to China. Oh, we could send help to China. Yes, I want to send help to China. Okay. Well, we're going to be historical. The U.S. would not send troops. They sent, some pilots and some ground crew, but no real troops. So we're going to send, get a cool down for a while. Relations with Japan go down, yes, but we are displeased. So we will send help to nationalist China. Yeah, I know that you're right, Greg, about building some certain leaders. We'll see what how it looks now with our current pause. Okay, Canada. Okay, you can have some pea shooters. Again, very out of date. No, we're not doing that. Cruiser damage control advance. All right. Yeah, we can let that go another. Only 2 or 3 times in the many years of playing, I'm just contented if I don't lose FDR as president in 36 elections. Yeah. I will say for World War II, FDR was the right president. But FDR did so much damage to America before World War II. He does so much damage. And the damage is continuing to this day. Because well, fuel tank that. Waiting for some of those to hit. So, well, we'll do carrier. Well, I'm not used to thinking carrier aircraft, but we definitely want good carrier aircraft. Okay. During this time period, the Great Depression, before World War II, I'm not sure of the year, the U.S. government wants to regulate, the national government, shall we say, wants to regulate everything, okay? And the United States Constitution says that anything not expressly given in the Constitution to the national government, the federal government, however you want to say it, is reserved for the states, okay? So the federal government can't, unless it says in the Constitution the federal government can do this, it automatically can't do it. Only the states can do it. Okay, if you understand it. So it's sort of like saying, well, I don't know. It's not. Federal government power isn't limited because it says, oh, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, as the federal government says. No, it only says the few things that the federal government can do. Everything else the state governments can do. So that means one state can have slaves and one state can't. It's up to the states. I mean, this was the way it used to be. I'm not saying this is good, everybody out there. I'm just saying anything that wasn't specifically said for the federal government can do. Everything else is to be regulated or controlled or set up by each state. So each state can have their own wacky policies. Hey, you can slave dark people or not, or whatever. Each state, whether they're good policies or bad policies, not talking about that, but each state gets to make up its own rules. The federal government can't. So under this time period, because of this depression as an excuse, in my opinion, largely, but also as trying to mitigate the depression, the federal government wants to regulate all kinds of things. Well, so they start putting out farm regulations. What you can farm. Well, nowhere in the Constitution does it say the federal government gets to regulate farms. Nowhere. But it does say the federal government gets to regulate interstate trade between the states. That was very much set up for the idea that Ohio, this is Ohio, could not tax, if they, if the federal government couldn't tax products coming from Pennsylvania. This is Pennsylvania over here. I hope I get all these states right that are unlabeled. They can't to protect Ohio businesses from Pennsylvania businesses. They can't tax imported goods from Pennsylvania. So that was the idea of the federal government regulating interstate trade, state trade between states. Okay. And that seems like a reasonably good, and I agree with it, seemingly really good power that the federal government should have. Well, during the FDR administration, they wanted to regulate everything. So they used that interstate clause down to it. And nowadays in modern America, you have, I think it's just like 3 or 4 main, but definitely less than 10 main food producer distributor companies, like Procter and Gamble and a few other that have a lot of sub brands. So the cereal you buy in the stores is from just a few companies. And so most of these big companies, not only are they growing the food in multiple states, wheat in multiple states, they're packaging it up in another state and selling it across other states. So yeah, I get the idea of federal regulation of these major food making corporations, as well as car making, because there's a lot of car regulations that nowhere does it say that the federal government can regulate how much miles per gallon, how much electric cars. That is entirely not allowed to be done under the Constitution. But they get away with it, and I know there's a bunch of people saying there. You may be onto some of my points, but I'll check the chat in a moment. But nowhere does it say in the Constitution that they can regulate cars. They can only regulate interstate commerce. Well, yes, most cars today have raw materials or subcomponents made in multiple states and assembled in one, and most of them are sold across multiple states. It's not just a car manufacturing here in Ohio manufactures cars and sells it in 4 dealerships all within the same state. That doesn't happen. I understand that. Okay. During this time period, and I don't know if it's 37, but during this time period, the late 30s after the Depression, there is a case, and I forget, I think it may be it's somewhere around here in one of the, I think, smaller states here. There is somebody who is has a large backyard, if you know the American, the English term would be back garden, but a large one, not what we would think as a big commercial farm, but a large back garden, if you will. Okay. And he's growing some food in there. I think it's some sort of fruit. I forget what it is. Whether it's trees or like watermelons or something. Okay. He's growing it in essence in a suburban sort of area. Okay. So this isn't a big farming operation. And all he does is he grows these foods in the back of his yard and behind his house. And all he does is sell that fruit in a stand in front of his home, okay? All he does, so this is, and I'm sure I'm getting something wrong here. So, hello, Halek and Federico, I'll get to your statements in just a moment. I want to, no new ships yet, no new divisions yet, we're just doing industry. All he does, and this is very much going on at this time period, all he does is sell these fruits of whatever type at a fruit stand that he's put together with his own hands at the front of his house. And there's no local city regulations, or no one's complaining about it locally. The federal government, well, he's not doing the right things. He's not doing whatever it was, doesn't matter what it was, he isn't doing it right. And the federal government, tickets him or whatever, goes after him with criminal things. And he takes it to court. And he says the federal government has no right to regulate what I grow in my back garden and what I sell at my front in the front of my house, because the federal government has no power to do this. The federal government takes it to court, and the federal government says, well, somebody could possibly come to his fruit stand, buy up all of the fruit stand, put it on a truck, and drive it to the next state. And now this is maybe like in a small state, like Delaware here, or Maryland, or New Jersey, or Connecticut is really just sort of this sort of river here. No, Rhode Island. I'm thinking this is Connecticut. Rhode Island here. Some of these are very possibly meaning this is Providence, Rhode Island. This is a state. This is one whole state right here in the United States. Rhode Island is remarkably small of a state. Half of it is on the island, basically, or third or whatever, quarter, I don't know. But it's a really small state. So yes, if it was here, it's very possible that someone would go, hey, yeah, I want to buy all that fruit and go sell it in Boston. Put it on a truck and sell it in Boston. Because it is possible. Not that this guy, there was no evidence that this guy ever sold fruit that was commercially going out of the state. And so, guys said, well, we'll regulate the guy who buys it from me and moves it to another state, but don't regulate me who's growing it and selling it only within one state. So, takes it to court because of court packing, or threats of it, because of FDR appointing a lot of judges. That court case went in the federal government's favor, because that farmers or that person growing food could possibly sell it in the other state. That allows the federal government to regulate what happens within one state. So if you have a business that you make chairs and tables out of wood and you sell them in front of your business, the federal government can come in and, environmental regulations, health safety regulations. Your workers need to wear these safety glasses when they work that saw, which is maybe a very good idea that they wear the safety glasses. God, I'm not saying they should have their eyes open and have the sawdust flinging in it, but you have to follow this federal regulation. And there may be other federal regulations that don't make sense for the business, but you have to follow this federal regulation because they've got, under FDR, the federal government to be able to regulate this business who literally does no interstate commerce. Now, yeah, somebody might come and buy 10 tables and chair sets and take them to another state and sells them. But this business does not do that. The federal government gets to regulate it. That is the damage that is still going on to this day. And I'm not talking about, because yes, safety glasses while you're working saws with sawdust and chips and all that kind of stuff flying is an excellent idea. But my God, if you need a regulation like this, can't fucking Virginia come up with that regulation? Do you need the federal government to come up with that regulation? And yes, I get people will go, but I want to buy safe food. And I want to buy, if I'm buying food and it's grown in Illinois, no, this is Illinois, grown in Illinois, and I live in Wisconsin, I want to make sure that it's safely handled. Yeah, we all want that. I'm not talking about whether the regulation is good or bad, but it's overly done by the federal regulation, and regulations that may be really good for this part of the world, really good regulations for this part of the world that I 100% agree with, maybe actually counterproductive, meaning bad regulations, harmful regulations in this part of the world that are enforced, because this is a dry desert and this is a moist, wet climate, or whatever it might be, and the federal government should have no business in doing this. And this is what really comes out under FDR's governance. I'm not talking, so don't come at me with, well, this union regulation or this safety regulation. Yeah, I'm not talking about whether the regulation is good, but if it's so good, wouldn't all the states? And you know what? Yeah, in the past, states had segregation, states had slavery. Yeah, we'll move the fuck out of that state if it's not what you want to live in. And so, yeah. Okay, let me get up to, let's see, I know you guys have been going on. I just came back from looking into Chinese standard. It turns out it was only coins and crossbow parts they did cast. Yeah, okay, Ringo. Yeah, coins is pretty good. But when I think of standardization, I think of being able to take a part from one gun and put it into another gun without having to do any like filing or fitting. But because with a Brown Bess, the lock, with the flintlock and all that stuff, they would make that as a unit and it would work together. And you could slap it onto basically any barrel, but you would have to fit the stock to it. But one part from one lock would have to be refitted, meaning filed or whatever, to fit in a different lock. You couldn't just swap the locks. Even though they looked the same, you'd have to do fitting levels. They weren't quite that, they worked to a standard pattern. That's why they call them, different patterns of the guns. They work to a same pattern, same basic principle, but they weren't interchangeable, as I would call it. But I think plants would increase much resources. Base modifiers increase. A little bit helps if you want big changes, yes. This goes hand in hand with 2K. How much do they increase? So I think I said hi to Helic, hopefully, and Federico. I'm doing well, catching up with the chat here. Coal, for instance, rise like 75%. Okay, Amish timber products, yeah, things like that are, and baked goods or something like that. And yeah, I want safe food too. Most food producers want to produce safe food, though there's always scammers out there, whether big industry scammers or small, home scammers. So, but what I want is Massachusetts to have its food safety standards, whether it's for a one-off local restaurant or for a chain restaurant. And okay, this was a corporate standard, not a government standard, but a corporate standard that sort of exemplifies the thing. I live in this part of the world. There was an old Arby's restaurant. Arby's, I don't know, is a chain restaurant that has sort of thinly sliced roast beef. I like it. Some people don't. And was in it there and would regularly go to one. And the buddy and I that we worked in the same office, we go there often together. And he pointed out and asked the manager there why were sort of a type of metal, I don't know, beam or screw kind of thing that would actually designed to sort of hold the building together going across the building. And says, well, the company's is a Midwest company, and they have building regulations for their any of their restaurants that are freestanding, as opposed to like built into a mall or something. But any restaurants that are freestanding, they have to have certain tornado regulation, are requirements so that they were safe if tornadoes, or safer if tornadoes come in. Well, there's never been a tornado in this part of the world, at least, since since it's become a state or whatever. So now this was a corporate regulation, not a government regulation, but it exemplifies the idea. So you're having to put in a building standard for tornadoes out here. And it would also be like, oh, well, if you have like an earthquake standard here, you have to have the same earthquake standard out here where there's no fault lines and no earthquakes. So that's the kind of thing, is not whether the requirement is a good requirement somewhere and in some conditions. It's everywhere. So like, yeah, Amish baked goods. Ever trying to catch up? Sorry, but okay. I think okay. Other stuff, useful stuff to spend on. So yeah, that's the damage that FDR has done to America, and what redeems him in my eyes is for all the damage he does, and he is. I mean, Wilson is bad. Wilson is a worse person. but FDR, I think, does the most damage to America. The only president we'll see how Biden does, because if Biden gets us into a nuclear war, that would be even worse damage. But we don't get any major wars. Biden is doing a lot of damage nationally, but I don't think any but he does worse. But people talk about, and the Bengal famine under Churchill, and some of Churchill's other bad policies in Churchill. Well, Churchill is partially responsible for saving the free world and defeating the Nazis and everything. So he's redeemed in my eyes. Yeah. However much Churchill bears responsibility for the Bengal famine, and he does bear some responsibility for it, maybe not in my eyes as much as other people think. And so he's redeemed. FDR is redeemed in my eyes enough for all the damage he does, and does some of the most damage of any American president, is that he sees the danger coming and he prepares for it as much and leads America. Unfortunately, if the Republicans had been in charge, America might have stayed out of the war. They might have not had they might have traded well enough with Japan that Japan wouldn't have attacked. And however much I liked the Republican policies back then of, less government kind of things, yeah, I could see them letting Britain, Soviet Union, and everything fall to the Axis outside of the Americas, and just holding on to the Americas, and we might still have a very, very dark world. So yeah. I as you can tell, I'm very, very conflicted with FDR. Submarine torpedoes advance. That would be here, and it's grayed out. Fine, good. Okay. Yeah, we'll do coastal submarines. We're not going to probably build too many, but if any at all, I don't know. Okay, molybdenum trade to Australia. Okay, Australia's unworthy to trade with. What is our current? Okay, we got level 4. Yeah, we'll trade. Okay, medium velocity guns. We are getting the clock through sometimes, but I hope my chatter is interesting. We do have 38 technologies, but I think, and we have been, well, these I feel, okay, road network, these I want to sort of push early on, like the naval, these things can happen at any time, meaning battleship crew training, shall we say, retrogrades to older battleships. So it's not like you have to do it before the battleship is made. So these are good to do, but pushing a little ahead to get some of these technologies going earlier will help us more, I think, in the long run. Roll advance, again, something that will upgrade, but we do want to sort of do it. Okay, most of the DDs are well, these are old Wicks class, and the newer ones are Clemson class for the DDs. Submarines, OR class. I do not till you get to the Gatos, Gato class. Many U.S. submarines are named after fish, and that becomes the standard. I don't know when it exactly becomes, because you can see here, these may be, well, the porpoise class. I don't know that class right offhand. But I think there may be some that predate, but you can see pike, porpoise, shark, I should say. Submarines out here. S class, yeah, I don't know. I guess these are earlier that are fairly early class submarines, just being numbered, it looks like. Well, we already did look at a lot of them earlier, Arno. I don't know if you weren't paying attention. Okay. Yeah, we're just reducing the effects of trading it away. Okay, Mexico has more warship damage control. Build the sugar boats. Okay, goldfish class would be a cool name. Yeah, I don't know if they named any goldfish. I think they were trying for saltwater fish. Purpose class were good ones except for the torpedoes. Well, the torpedoes are just the problem in whatever class they get put in. I think for the submarines, they all fit the same standard torpedo tubes. I do know that air-launched torpedoes and at least some or most, or I don't know, of the are the same as what's on the motor torpedo boats. I think, again, and there's a lot I don't know about, but I think most of the destroyer torpedoes are the same class of torpedoes that are on the submarines, I think. But I'm not sure on that. What was the last one that just popped up? Okay, small warship damage control. Okay, 37. You know what we're going to do? We're going to switch this over to, don't know if we're going to build any torpedo boats, but let's have ours up to date if we decide to. The old Mark 110, yeah. Okay, Yugoslavia, no. Poland, no. Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a nerfing event for American torpedoes, but yeah, it's well through at least most of 42, if not later. They're bad. There are some of them are figured out locally how to change some of the problems with them. Light bomber prototype, very good, which is grayed out, but now opens up that to be researched. Okay, we'll see. Okay, medium bomber prototypes, which grayed out, yeah, and I'll do this. Okay, end of the 1911 U.S. agreement. I presume it's not the pistol, so I don't know what this. Japan's attack on China was condemned by the U.S. Several members of the League of Nations, including Britain, France, Australia, and Netherlands. These states had economic and territorial interests or formal colonies in East and Southeast Asia, and they were increasingly alarmed at Japan's new military power and its willingness to use it, which threatened their control in Asia. In July 1939, the U.S. terminated its 1911 commercial. It's happening early if it's no. Its 1911 commercial treaty with Japan, and many members of the Allies have also progressively embargoed Japan, cutting it from Australian steel, East Indian oil, and other colonial riches. The U.S. has also signaled that if hostilities in China escalate much further, they will feel obliged to embargo Japan. Okay. Well, this has to happen in July 39. So I'm going to no need to, I guess. I'm going to do no need to. Torpedo was one of the aspects the Japanese were ahead on the U.S. Okay, well, to the best of my knowledge, and I've watched some stuff on it, basically bad until late 42, 43. Okay, those were good. It was the successor torpedoes that sucked. Right. There are, and I've watched some movies and some documentaries, there are two issues with the torpedoes. One, and during this time period, 1937, forget just where the sort of base is, but I think it's around here. There's just one government base slowly turning out torpedoes. And they claim and believe that they're the expert and know everything on torpedoes. Well, I think part of the problem is that they're testing the torpedoes here. I'm trying to remember. Again, scientific stuff I don't keep in my head very well. They the two issues are, is one of them is running too deep under the water, and the others is the impact of the torpedo on the ship not detonating the torpedo right. Well, part of my understanding for the depth is that most of this torpedoes were used here, and it actually sort of varied because of the latitude of where they were operating, meaning they were being tested way up here in the north and they were operating down here. So locally, even though they were ordered not to, they eventually figure just put all of the torpedoes to run literally on the surface, setting the settings to go out, and that would normally keep them deep enough, or not be on the surface, but keep them shallow enough to actually hit the targets. Because a lot of times they were just running too deep. That is figured out, and they against orders, start resetting their torpedoes. The other thing is detonating, and what they found is that if you went straight onto the side of the target, straight in 90-degree angle, it wouldn't go off because problems with the detonator. Where if you get a glancing blow, it wouldn't hit the detonator as hard, so it would actually work. It was hitting it like too hard, and so it would work. So it was hit or miss as to whether if they hit, it would go off. So I would say that the depth problem wasn't a bad design, it was just bad settings, and the other is a problem, yes. Norfolk, was it Norfolk? Okay, Federico, yeah, I'm not sure. That they had a special torpedo. Now, once the war gets going, they have a bunch of different manufacturers making the torpedoes, but they should, but they were all made to the same specifications, and they weren't allowed to change them. So, and you don't want them changing it. We were genius, and this torpedo can't fail. Yeah, no need to do well, they actually done some testing, but they done very limited testing because of tight budgets. Mountain HQs, that would be down here. Okay, yeah, we're going to focus more on getting industry and whatnot up and going. So yeah, there was an arrogance, you're absolutely right. It was definitely an institutional arrogance. They had done some testing, and their testing showed that everything was fine. And then when they went in and, with all the complaints, they went in and tested it again under the same conditions. It was still fine. But the test out in the Pacific with recovery, and nope, it wasn't fine. So eventually they do get it straightened out. And it was just a minor change in my understanding on the firing pin situation, that once that was done, otherwise it didn't change. And once they figured out that the depth settings running out in the lower latitudes, or however it was, and it all made sense when I heard it at the time. I just can't remember it well enough to tell you why it didn't work out in the fields. Okay, well, I guess we're going. I mean, we have plenty, but we're going to later on hopefully ramp up and need a lot more rare materials and whatnot. So let's get that started to research. The Bureau of Art absolutely were stubborn, and their main response was that you're using it. Yep, that was their response. They didn't want to hear it. My understanding is they did do some tests. Now, whether they're good tests or appropriate tests back by the Bureau of Ordnance or not, was, they did do that. I mean, they were arrogant for sure, but they were at least trying in their own fashion, if you will, to see doing it, but they just weren't believing. Okay, we'll let that continue. What they were being told. And I will have to say, to some degrees, because I deal with this, and maybe some of you out there now watching, I get reports. I installed everything just as it said in the video or whatever, that I make on how to install the game, and it doesn't work. Well, knowing that I've installed Hearts of Iron 4 and lots of Black Ice many, many times, and knowing that if you install it right, it works. So when somebody says, well, I installed it right and it doesn't work, I take that as at least mostly because, I guess in theory something may be different with your computer or some other settings in your computer that are keeping it from working. But really it's your user error in installing it some way, and I don't know because I didn't watch you install it, why it doesn't work. It is probably a user error, and that's mostly, quite honestly, what has happened when people complain that their thing doesn't work. It's user error. And some of it might be explanation error, meaning not that I've explained it wrong, but I've not explained it in a way that we'll do oil refining next. In a way that they understand it, what is sound and when it did work. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Frederico. It wasn't that it was a bad design in the torpedo, other than the wrong material or whatever for the firing pin. Once they got the things working, it worked excellent. Mobile unit command and control. Be here. Okay, 36. We'll let that continue. You can have some metal. Okay, who? South African, no. Mobile unit training, yes. We'll let that continue. Light cruiser class advanced. Oh, we have a lot. Oh, we've gotten, something's happened that is changed on us. Okay, well, we'll stop that because I want to think. Okay, well, cruiser class. I want to at least think most of my research is actually, okay, it's up here, it looks like, is actually being researched. Just as these come up, we'll just stop that. Unit combined arms. Really, okay. No, no, no. Iran, nope. Not unit training. We'll just cancel that. Okay, let's see. We're going to invest in scientific community. 10,000 money. We've got 21,000, so that's we got that because that's why we weren't getting more research, because we lost this. And there we go. So we'll do that. Well, let's take a look at our. Okay, tungsten, we are at surplus of only 1. Nickel. Do we want to do more nickel? Or later on, they'll be able to trade it. So 2,000. If we were to do, we can do gold, aluminum, copper, molybdenum, tungsten, zinc. Yes, do we want to do tungsten? So heart attack. So if we do some more of that, yeah, let's also see about investing in tungsten here. We'll invest in some tungsten development for later on. Now we have pause. More research. And 38, get our welding and our casting capabilities up. We will do that soonish, but don't need transportation. Well, should we? Yeah, let's start the path. I'm sort of thinking about unlocking like other effects that will unlock other things as much as anything else. So let's, yeah, we can come here and do this and that. There we go. Okay, more gold, cool. Battle cruiser armor thickness advance. That's under capital, I think. Yeah, we don't. I don't know how much battle cruisers we're going to make, but I don't know if we need to go too thick on their armor. Because I'm presuming the thicker their armor, the slower they're going to go, and we want fast ships for cruisers, even battle cruisers. Light cruiser armament 37. Yeah, we could increase that. Direct fire unit combined arms of advance. Very nice. No, that's this one. Okay, let's see. Other 37 or 36, which we have all those. We can go back and let's start getting that doing. But we're going to end this episode. I want to thank everyone. I hope you've enjoyed me babbling on about stuff. Like the video, subscribe, all that. Stick around. See you next time for more, yes, more Hearts of